hearing loss. And
Ah.
I actually want to talk about hearing loss because we talked about signal loss. So it makes sense to talk about hearing loss because it's a related concept, right? So everybody should be wearing plugs on stage. I have been guilty many times of forgetting my plugs and not wearing them on stage. Fortunately, the last time I did it, my ears weren't ringing. So thank God I didn't do any more damage than I've already done. But I think people tend to assume that, their hearing is okay unless they're told otherwise. I can tell you the vast majority of people I play with, albeit drummers, guitarists, bass players, have hearing loss. They do. They may not know they have hearing loss. I have heard people cranking up treble that just doesn't need to be there. And I don't think, and it, like, to the point where it's unpleasant, it's physically unpleasant to be in front of your, amplifier. I think some of that's also because, people point amps at their ankles. But like drummers, because they're a foot away from their cymbals most of the time, and cymbals are the one thing in a band that just totally wrecks your ability to hear high frequencies. I can say that I don't want to stand next to drummers anymore when I'm on stage. There's something I've noticed. I already have some high frequency hearing loss. You can find a lot of engineers who have high frequency hearing loss. Apparently Mutt Lange can't hear like anything above like 15 kilohertz or some crazy.
Which is weird because of the perfectionist that he is.
Well, apparently he has high frequency hearing loss starting at like 2K.
Yeah.
Which should tell you something. He's mixing a lot based on the mid-range. And for some reason, he's found that magic stuff that also filters into the high end and the harmonics and all that stuff. And probably also relies a lot on gear that he knows to get away with it. And apparently this is like a real... Mix Magazine did an article on this, and this is a real problem in the engineering world. There's a lot of people with high-frequency hearing loss who are like multi-platinum producers who are still producing like that, like still putting out big hit records that cannot hear high frequencies out at all whatsoever. Which is pretty wild to me because, when was the last time you heard a record that was like the highs were just cutting your head off? Which sort of makes you wonder how much of that's being fixed in mastering. But I can tell you, I know at least two people who've told me they have high frequency hearing problems. And they actually asked me to listen to their stuff. At least once I've had that asked of me from one of them, and the other guy was like, after he was done, he was like, "Yeah, sound okay?" And I was like, "Yeah." But like asked me to help them tweak their things because they can't hear the high end, and it's kind of funny. It's funny, but it's also tragic. So that's why I was like, I wanted to take 15 minutes and just remind people, like, hearing protection, especially if you're younger and you're just getting started with this stuff, don't screw around because you only get it once. And once it's gone forever. Jim, I'm sure you have hearing loss.
I have tinnitus. I'm listening to it right now. It's consistent. It's 24/7. It never goes away. I recommend getting these. They're called Eros. And it's
any sort of hearing protection is going to be better than none. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything is better than nothing, but these. You get this little thing, and you have it on your key ring.
Yep.
And
so you don't lose them like I do. You don't forget them like I do.
Yep. They're inside there. I don't know if you can see them, but and they're in there all the time. And I just buy new sets about every quarter. They're not cheap, but when I wear them, I can sing, I can play, I can listen to other people play, I can hear other people sing, and believe it or not, it helps to knock down a little bit of that tinnitus. That goes on forever. It goes on all the time.
I have a little bit of it already, and I've had it basically since I was in high school when I was playing. And
another thing that
wear any protection back then. That's what caused it.
Yep. Another thing that will I'm gonna dovetail on this, and then we'll be done. Another thing that'll knock down some of your hearing: drinking. It's a fact. Anyone who thinks that getting drunk or drinking improves it is lying to themselves. It is a fact that drinking changes the vascular system, and
Which is required for your hearing to work properly.
it literally knocks down hearing, which is why drunks are always, "Hey man, how's it going? Come on!"
Yeah, that's a big part of it, and then it also actually changes the way that the brain interprets sound.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. If you can avoid it, don't get hammered and go out and play. I'm sure that other mind-altering substances may have similar effects, but alcohol is one of the few that actually affects your cardiovascular system in that way.
Yep.
So it's worth mentioning. It's not permanent damage like not wearing hearing protection is, though, which that's one thing to keep in mind. This is permanent damage. Like I hear ringing. It's like white noise, but it's there and it's below the surface.
Yep.
It's not enough to be annoying because there's some people have reported that tinnitus is so bad that it like drives them crazy, literally. So fortunately, I'm not in any shape like that. This is not, Saving Private Ryan. A tank blew a hole in the building next to me kind of hearing loss. This is like standing in front of a 150 watt solid state amplifier cranked up to 7 for too many hours in band practice because I was an idiot kind of thing.
Yep. All that said, I still recommend turning up your amp. Just make sure you're wearing earplugs.
Yeah, definitely wear your hearing protection. And the funny thing is, like, so the last couple of shows I've been wearing my plugs, and it was funny because I was like, man, I'm not even going to be able to enjoy my sound and all this stuff as I'm going through this process, and thinking like maybe I'll just pull one out for a little bit, or and it was so funny because like you put them in and you start playing and you never even think about pulling them out. It's just like you never even because all it does is knock off. If you've got the right kind of plugs, all it does is just knock off the volume. It doesn't even change the frequency contour that you're listening to. So it's literally just like turning everything down 12 dB or something, so you can hear yourself think on stage. And the bigger problem now, Jim, is that so many people are going to in-ears, and especially people who are familiar with wedges, they want their in-ears to be loud. And it's like, whoa, dude, you got 8 tiny speakers in there and you're plugging them into your ear canal, using it as a resonance chamber, and you got them cranked to high hell? Why don't you just blow your eardrums out now? I mean, that's where you're headed. So I caution you, even if you're in a situation where you can enjoy the luxury of in-ears, turn them down. Get them as low as you can comfortably go and play that way, because anytime you're in close proximity to your ears, that's not good. Which I can remember the first time I was in a music store and somebody was working on an amplifier, like trying to help me, pick out an amp. And I was playing, and the guy got down next to the speaker before I played something, and he looked at me, he goes, "You little shit." I said, "Well, I'm sorry, I didn't think about it." I was like, "Whoops." It's a long time ago. He literally turned to me and he goes, "You little shit." Like he thought I was playing a prank on him, I was like, no, I just never occurred to me that you'd have it super loud and be right next to it.
When you're young, you think you're made of bulletproof armor, and or I did, I guess. And I would stand right in front of the amplifiers. I remember going to see Iron Maiden and it being next to the stage left wall of PA gear and just listening to them blast. And do you think I was wearing earplugs? The answer is no.
There is an intense stigma for a while, and I was never a part of it, but I've heard people talk about it, especially in the 80s, like the idea that you didn't wear them because it wasn't cool kind of thing. And I'm sure that went along with the punk aesthetic and all that. And it's like hardcore bands were literally just turning their amps all the way up and like just going for it, and they don't have any hearing protection whatsoever. And by the way, just because an amp compresses past 5 on the volume knob doesn't mean it's any easier on your ears if you use that compression to your advantage.
Right.
It actually means it sucks just as bad, It's exactly. Oh.